The major races I still get nervous, and it's more of an excitement nervous. So like places like Bathurst, Sandown, even the Gold Coast, it's those events are very important to get right. And I believe if you weren't nervous, which I say excitement nervous, every time you wake up, you haven't got that desire to get out there and have a red hot go at trying to win that event. I grew up enjoying the McLaren era, so knowing Bruce McLaren was a Kiwi, I think that if I had an opportunity to drive in a Formula One car, even now, I still would like to choose McLaren. I think that it's got a great history behind it, so yeah, that'd be the team I'd choose. I grew up again watching Ayrton Senna, really admired how he operated, watched his movie, and really was moved by that side of it as well. So probably Ayrton would be a driver in the past that I would have loved to have had an opportunity to race with. Current person, I'd have to say that probably Jenson Button. I was lucky enough, we had a bit of a connection racing or driving a Formula One car around Bathurst. He drove a supercar, so Jenson would be a great combination. Two things I've always said that keeps me involved in racing full-time is the enjoyment. I still thoroughly love it, but also being competitive. And I think you've got to be realistic that you don't want to be just making up the numbers. You want to still have the opportunity of winning races, putting the car in pole position, winning championships, winning the major ones, Bathurst. So until that side of it starts to diminish, I think that there's a progress or a process of going from a main driver to a co-driver and driving in the endurance, and I believe that you probably could still do that for another 2 or 3 years as a co-driver once you step down. My full-time current position, I'd like to think that we could at least do this year and another 2 more years full-time before we get to that stage. My favourite race memory would be Bathurst in '06. Obviously the passing of Peter Brock, and went into that race with a lot of desire to win, but also I was very nervous. It was a major event. We all knew why we went there as drivers, to represent Peter as a person and what his legacy had stand for. So to be the first person on that Peter Brock trophy, I was very delighted. I think that my two teammates are very strong contenders. I think Shane and Jamie are definitely showing form. I think Team Penske are definitely stepped up, and they've shown that they've progressed from last year. So I think that both Fabian, Scotty McLaughlin probably might be ahead of Fabian a little bit. Can't discount James Courtney. I think that the HSV new now branded team, I think will be very determined to show what they're made of. But then you look at the Nissans were strong at the beginning of the year, and I just got a sense that they will probably come into some of the forum somewhere along the line. So whether it's a Michael Caruso or a Rick Kelly, I think probably those guys will be around the top 5. Well, I think we always watch the development series or the Series 2 category. I think that there's no doubt that's a good breeding ground for not only drivers but for engineers and team owners. But I think that Cam Waters is one of the current guys that have come up from that series, and I think that he's had his second year involved with us as our level, and I think he's now showing that he's matured. He's obviously got a good team around him, and I think that he will be one of the standouts in the near future. Yes, there's 2 that one I've done, one I'd love to go back, and one I haven't done I'd love to do, which the Spa, or 24 hours of Spa. I managed to do that a couple of years ago, and we were lucky enough to finish 3rd now in our category in the Pro-Am, and I think we were 8th overall, so that was pretty good, huge achievement for us. I'd love to go back and do that again, but the race that I've always talked about since I was a baby was the Le Mans 24 Hour. I think that there's no doubt that I'd love to have that on your CV before we end our driving career. Very tough question. I think that there's no doubt that politically it's the supercar, but no, I think that driving the 12 hour this year, the Ferrari 488 is a different car to drive than a supercar. The supercar has got obviously a lot of horsepower, it's faster in a straight line than the Ferrari, but in the Ferrari you don't have to take your hands off the steering wheel. Paddle shift, All the buttons are on the steering wheel. It's got ABS, traction controls, all the stuff that we take for, I suppose, you take for granted because you don't have that in a supercar. So I think the Ferrari is a much easier car to drive. Well, SACHS obviously for me have been the shock absorber and the clutches that we've been using for me now over the last 13 years. So it's a great alliance that we have with SACHS. I think there's no doubt that what we learn and we develop, we share back to their head base, and again that helps them develop and work forward with technology. So I think we work very well, harmonious together.